Well, 10 minutes to the top of the hour. My name is Dalton Kawesa. When you hear that sound, you just know we just have breaking news and just interrupt what is going on in order to bring you abreast to the news that is breaking. Well, we're coming to you live from here Media Center, and we're trying to connect, rather beg your pardon, we are coming to you live here at Media Plaza, and we're trying to connect to Magere, where the home of MP Kyagulanyi is going to hold, as promised, a press conference regarding his next on plan. We're going to connect to Magere. We'll have different reporters from here. We have Orange Richard. We also have Eddie Chiseka, who's going to be giving us abreast to what is happening. Well, upon return and interfacing with the different media houses and also his supporters, MP Kyagulanyi promised to brief the nation on what falls next after his return, and from also a brief on what he went through and different meetings he held with different stakeholders and human rights organization. BOBI WINE left this country after the Arua events that have since had debate across the world, not only in this country. Well, he was going to detail to us what he agreed. He has given in different international interviews on which he detailed on the atrocities he thinks that are happening in this country and why the youth who form his age bracket should stand up. You are watching NBS, the Political Command Center. My name is Dalton Kawesa. I will definitely bring you details on what is happening in Magere, where he will be briefing the nation on what his next course of action. That is the picture that you're seeing live from Magere, where BOBI WINE sits at his residence. Let's listen in and see what happens.
We agreed to have this presser beginning 10 o'clock, but for the minutes that we went beyond, please take our apologies. Now, fellow Ugandans here in Uganda and abroad, I greet you on my behalf and on behalf of the many people that did not get the opportunity to communicate to you today. I thank you for standing with us, and there's a new energy that we saw in you that encourages that this is not just about us, like we said, but it's about all of you. We thank you for having personally taken on the struggle for your own liberty and treating it as your own. You all know what happened on the 13th of August in Arua, and I don't intend to dwell so much on it. However, you know, what the enemy intended to be for evil, God turned around, and he did made it for good, because it went ahead to open our eyes and our consciousness to the realities that we're dealing with every day, to the problems that we face every day. It made it evident even for somebody who did not see it at first. And yes, it opened the eyes of not only Ugandans, but all peace-loving people across the globe. You realize that the officials from the Ugandan government have always been trying to project a picture that Uganda is a democratic country. And for so long, the rights of people have been abused, people have been brutalized, and many killed, and it has always been conveniently concealed. But I'm glad that that cannot happen anymore. All these atrocities, all the injustices, and all the lies have been exposed to the whole world to see. That goes to you, gentlemen, most importantly, and ladies, of course, of the media. You've been the eyes of Uganda and indeed the eyes of the world. I'm still trying to get to terms with the brutal murder of my comrade Yasin and many others that got killed. I just learned recently that the guy who was shot dead in Gomba was indeed my OB. His name was Serungaya, and we went together in Bukalaji Primary School back in the days when I was still in the village. There were also people who were killed in Mitiana during the peaceful protests against our illegal detention. Our hearts continue to be with their families. And I must also note that on the 27th of August, the day we were bailed out of court, two young people who had stood by the roadside to express solidarity with us were knocked dead by police vehicles. Now these are people killed by those who are supposed, in fact those who are paid to protect them. It is sad, and we continue to condemn it in the toughest terms possible. Many more people were brutalized, and like you saw recently, I visited some of our colleagues that I could afford to reach, but many continue to suffer in hospitals. Many have been detained without charge, and yes, many continue to be brutalized and tortured. I spoke to my friend Eddie Mutwe, and he narrated to me his ordeal, how he was brutally arrested, blindfolded for more than 10 days, and held incommunicado, which is illegal. And yes, we continue to condemn that. I must remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that our legal teams are working day and night to ensure that they get the freedom of these people, but also to follow up the cases of our colleagues, those who have died and those that have been tortured. And I can guarantee you that sooner or later, justice will prevail. In a special way, I want to commend the Uganda Law Society for standing firmly to defend the rights of the people. You've seen them even amidst intimidation and yes, efforts to compromise some of them are underway, but they've stood strong. And it's at this juncture that I would like to request the entire legal fraternity to stand behind the leadership of the Uganda Law Society so that our legal minds can really benefit the nation the way the nation always hoped to be to benefit from them. The citizens of Uganda have gone through tough times since the days when many of us were growing up. The citizens of Uganda are still going through tough times. But my call to them is that we must stand together. We are in this together, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed when we stand together, we shall be able to liberate our country. This is not about a single person, it's about all of us. So we cannot just sit back and continue to watch with shock the disturbing videos of the security officers of the military, of the police, brutalizing and torturing the people they are actually paid to protect, and sit in our confidence, in our comfort. I can tell you that regardless of how comfortable you think you are, the injustices that you see from a distance will eventually come to you. And like Dr. Martin Luther King once noted, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So yes, the injustice that goes on your fellow Ugandan is a big threat to your own justice and liberty. So I call upon all Ugandans to be vigilant, to stand together, and to not keep quiet, especially in this defining time in our history. I also want to thank in a special way the media fraternity. You, the journalists, the Ugandan journalists, and the international journalists have played a big role. You've been the eyes and ears of our country. Many of you know that maybe if I tried to communicate or raise my voice or represent the people that go through the same plight as I do, I probably wouldn't be able. But you make it much more possible and easy for us to raise our voice, and I must say I commend you. I've seen many of you act professionally, even in extreme danger. I was so humbled by a journalist I saw trying to save the life of a guy whose name I learned was Sweet Pepsi, who was brutalized by the army that was putting on a national uniform with our national flag, which is supposed to be an emblem of honor. But this journalist came and did what continues to challenge me. So, gentlemen, ladies, I want to thank you on my behalf and on behalf of all my comrades in the struggle. We've seen journalists being brutalized, being beaten by security forces in broad daylight. I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, that we are together in this. And yes, I will remind you that one of our core objectives is to restore media freedom so that you can practice your call in an atmosphere where you don't have to fear for your life, where you don't have to be beaten for being a journalist. I'm sure that is not what you envisioned when you went to School of Journalism. You want to be able to tell the story without fear. So we are standing together, ladies and gentlemen, and I can tell you that for as sure as God exists, we shall overcome. I must also note that we have very many professional and patriotic ladies and gentlemen in the security forces. I have interacted with so many of them from the top to the lowest levels, and many of them have intimated to me that they are frustrated by the way the system operates. They don't want to continuously be a shame to the uniform they put on. They put on our uniform, they wear our badge, and they want it to be a national badge of honor, not a badge of criticism. So much as many of them are being pushed to brutalize the innocent citizens, much as many of them are continuously forced to do what they don't believe in, I want to commend those ones that continue to stand by the values that they were trained with. And I want to continuously call upon them to, yes, be the voice of reason wherever they are. And to those brothers and sisters in uniform, I want to remind you that you are Ugandans before and after you are a security officer. Before you put on that uniform, you are a Ugandan, and after you remove that uniform, you are a Ugandan still. So you are a Ugandan first and a Ugandan after, before that. Do not take illegal, positions in defense of the regime. You're supposed to stand with the citizens of Uganda. You swore to protect and defend the citizens of Uganda. So please stand at the right side, stand on the right side of history. And I also challenge you to go through history and see the people that behaved the way you behave. And fast forward, you will see what I'm trying to mean. So please do not be forces of fear. Don't be forces of terror. Be forces of friendship. Be Ugandan because you swore to be Ugandan. I see some members of the international community, some members of the international press. We welcome you in a special way, and we thank you for being part of the Ugandan story right from independence. It has not just started now. It started a long time ago, and yes, it will continue. But one thing that you have done, and we request you to continue doing for us, is not to take your eyes off us. We don't want to be crying in the dark. We don't want to be suffering in the dark. All we need from you is to tell our story, to make sure that the world sees what is going on in Uganda. As I said in the beginning, that the regime here has been able to commit so many atrocities against the innocent citizens. And yes, it has been smart enough to come off as a democratic regime until recently. So the more you keep your eyes on us, the more you keep your cameras on us, is the more this regime is going to be exposed, whether it is good or bad. So please project our good, and yes, project the challenges that we have. Before I leave the issue of the security forces, I've already mentioned that we have very good and patriotic officers, and I salute you, ladies and gentlemen, in the forces, although it is not very easy to stand with the country. But allow me, for those who are professional, and yes, for those that are continuously used to brutalize the Ugandans and step on their freedoms, I want to repeat our message to you. We are not fighting you, we are fighting for you, because we know that even the brothers and sisters in the armed forces, in the military and in the police, they are also Ugandans like us and go through the same challenges every day. These are people that we meet when they put off their uniform, and we share the same plight. So please be human and continue being Ugandan. I had to repeat that again to make sure our brothers and sisters get us, and to make sure they get our message once again, that we are not enemies. We are Ugandans serving in different institutions, in different calibers, at different levels. So we are not fighting against you, we are fighting for you too. Now, to President Museveni. I want to know what you feel when you treat your people like this, Mr. President. How does it feel to continuously keep your boot on the necks of your people? Many times you've reminded us that you are our grandfather, you are our Jaja. But the way we are being treated, the way we are being brutalized, does not reflect what I know of a grandfather or a grandparent. Many of my contemporaries who I spoke to have actually given me the same story that I experienced when I was growing up. Grandparents are people we always run to for protection, for love, for care. Just yesterday when my grandmother visited me, and for the record, I was blocked from visiting my grandmother the day I came back to the country. She actually had thought I was dead. So when she came and visited me, she carried me. She's very old and very weak, but she carried me on her lap. She patted me, she hugged me. She even tried to lift me, though she can't. And she prayed with me. So, Mr. President, I think that that is how a grandparent should be treating grandchildren. We are children, indeed grandchildren of Uganda, who also have a brain and have a voice. So I believe that a grandparent should not be brutalizing and framing grandchildren every time they try to raise their voice or every time they have a different opinion. We want to learn from our elders. We want to learn from you, Mr. President. But what is coming from you is not what we would be glad to learn. I have read many communications from you, Mr. President, ever since the events in Arua. And yes, I've watched the numerous press briefings that you've given the nation. And I must say I was very disappointed to know that the security agents, the soldiers that brutalized, that tortured us, me and other legislators, and yes, other innocent Ugandans, and yes, the same people, the same soldiers that murdered innocent Ugandans, including my brother Yasin Kauma. The soldiers, I expected you to call to order. I was very disappointed when you seemed to pat them on the back for a job well done. That was disappointing, Mr. President. Very, very disappointing. And that is not what our generation would expect out of a grandparent. I must also note that the day I came back, Entebbe Airport was seemingly under siege. Entebbe town, and yes, Kampala, was more or less a war zone. People were being brutalized. We saw soldiers everywhere. Fear was pointed everywhere. And Mr. President, you and your lieutenants have always dismissed us as inconsequential. So I wonder what causes so much fear about people that you have always dismissed as inconsequential, as bayaye from the ghetto. I also want to call upon the president of the country to stick by his words, to be true to his words, the words that we read, the words that we are so proud of when we were growing up. To be a statesman and not a politician. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I've many times disliked being referred to as a politician, because according to the way things are in Uganda, a politician is literally a person that cares only for the next general election. But a statesman cares for the next general, a statesman cares for the next generation. So, Mr. President, we ask you to be a statesman and not a politician. And I want you to remember that just like us, there was a time when you were not in power. There was a time when the former regimes, the regimes that you discredit every now and then, there's a time those regimes, particularly in the 80s, those regimes called you bandits when you were still fighting for freedom, although you were fighting violently, and we don't believe in violence. That's the only difference. So I want you, Mr. President, to know that just like there was a time when you were not in power, there will be a time when you are not in power. I repeat, just like there was a time when you are not in power, you must remember that there will be a time when you are not in power. So you should treat people the way you want to be treated. You should respect the rights of Ugandans the way you want to be treated. The nation has always been looking up to you. It is not too late, Mr. President, to do what is right. It is not too late to listen to our cries. It is not too late to regain your legacy, to save your legacy, Mr. President. So please do what is right. I want to close my communication to the President
Turn off the phone.
It's understandable. I want to conclude my message, my brief message to the President, by reminding him, I know our president is a great reader, and I know he's particularly a good Bible reader. I want to remind you of what Moses told the Pharaoh of Egypt. He said, let my people go. So it is up to you to remain stiff-necked, with a stiff neck, or to yield to the humble call, and indeed the desperate call of all Ugandans, to let them free, to let them go. It is not impossible, and it is not too late. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, and I must note that I put together a press statement for you, ladies and gentlemen, because I did not want this press brief to take 4 hours or beyond. I will give the text to you so you can be able to address yourselves to it. I want to get on my last point today, and my last point will be the people power idea. Ladies and gentlemen, so many people have been asking what people power is. Allow me to make it clear today, and yes, I will continue to try to clarify it personally and through other colleagues. I want to make it clear that people power is not BOBI Wine. People power is not about BOBI Wine or anybody for that matter. People power is an idea that is premised on the fact that power belongs to the people. And that fact is guaranteed by Article number 1 of our Constitution, which states that all power belongs to the people. Not some power, but all power. So, because of the way we've been subjected to ridicule, because of the way we've been dehumanized, because of the way we've been reduced to being less than citizens, we decided to evoke Article number 1 of our Constitution, which, in my opinion, and indeed in the opinions of many fellow struggleists, it is the first step to realizing who we are, what we have, and what we are capable of achieving. So people power does not just refer to me. As I've said before, I'm just one of the more than 40 million Ugandans that continue to walk towards a road that they are not certain about. People power is you, the journalist, who wants to practice his calling with dignity, but you're being beaten every day like you're a thief. And yes, the government officials are coming out to suggest that they suspected you to be petty thieves. People power is that young lawyer who does not have a voice to practice his legal profession with independence. People power is this legislator that is brutalized for speaking the truth. People power is that young man on a border stage who sold his chibanja, but again continues to be a slave in his own country. People power are all of us who continue to be less than Ugandans, yet we know we deserve more. So people power is you, people power is me, people power is everybody. People power is not a political party or political organization for that matter. We are aware that the state is so scared of the people who come together regardless of their political affiliations, regardless of tribe or religion, but people who envision an idea of having power back in their hands, of having real independence. And yes, the state is doing everything that is possible. I told you this, and I will say it again, that the state has so many times tried to put people within us, people to cause chaos so they can project us as violent people, people to come in our midst and throw stones or objects so that they can, the security forces can get justification to reply back to us with bullets. Many times they've been trying to push us in different corners. They want to identify us as a political organization, and yet we are people that just believe in an idea that we believe every Ugandan should believe in, that power is in their hands. And I want to emphasize that every Ugandan has equal stake in the idea of people power. And yes, this does not only end with us Ugandans, but with all peace-loving people, with all people who believe in democracy, in all people who believe that leaders should be servants and the people should be the real masters of their destiny. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my friends yesterday, and I was telling them that the leaders should be scared of the citizens and not the other way around. But here in Uganda, the citizens are scared of the leaders, because the leaders will beat them if they dare to raise their voices. In my opinion, the leaders should be scared of the citizens, because if they don't run the offices that they're interested with, they should be afraid that people will kick them out and choose other leaders. So people power is everybody. People power is an idea. People power is unstoppable. I will emphasize again that we are aware that the state has been so much trying to identify us to their own convenience. They've been trying to put us in a corner where they can contain us. And yes, we have information that the regime has put some people to go and register the name People Power as a political entity, so that they can stop us from using the word people power, so that they can stop us from coming together regardless of different political affiliations, so that they can find a way of pushing the idea of people power in a corner. We are aware of that, and I want to inform them that we are not bothered, because we know this is not about us, this is about all Ugandans. And Ugandans cannot be stopped. Marcus Garvey said, liberate the minds of men and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. So for as long as the minds of Ugandans are being liberated, for as long as all Ugandans are realizing every day that power actually belongs in their hands, then they will be unstoppable. We are continuously engaging with our brothers from across the divide, our brothers from the FDC, our brothers from the NRM, our brothers from the Democratic Party, from JEMA, from HDP, and yes, from other political affiliations, because we know that this is not about any particular political party. We know that we want to liberate ourselves, all of us, and we have an equal stake in this. So my call to Ugandans on that matter is that let us stand together. Let us remember that we shall either win together or remain slaves, oppressed together in our own country. Like I said, I don't want to talk for 4 hours since we have a few questions, and I also plan to briefly translate. I also briefly intend to translate it into Luganda for our local journalists, and maybe some colleagues will help me translate in other Ugandan languages. I cannot forget to mention how heartbroken I was and continue to be over the brutal murder of our brother and colleague Mohammed Chirumira. That and many other senseless killings continue to open our eyes to the realities that our country is facing. For him and all our other comrades that we've lost in the struggle, we pray that God rests their souls in eternal peace. Like I said, I have shared with you a text of our press release, and we'll request you, ladies and gentlemen, to also refer to it for a few details that I've not mentioned. I thank you once more for standing with us. I thank you for always trying to be independent, even amidst extreme intimidation, ladies and gentlemen. And I want you to know that oppressed people shall not always be oppressed. One day we shall get the freedom, liberty, and dignity that we deserve. They might arrest a few of us. They might detain, imprison, or even eliminate some. But ultimately, they cannot kill us all. Oppressed people will not always be oppressed. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for God and my country. People power, our power. Our power, people power.
Thank you, Honorable Chagulanyi. We'll now field questions. I request that you keep your question within a minute. I'm going to have 2 rounds of questions, and I'm co-moderating this Q&A session with...
well, that is MP Chagulanyi as he unwraps what he had for the media. He talks about different issues. One of the highlights is the message that's been running around, especially the relationship between the people power and the security forces. He says that the movement of people power, they are not fighting against the security forces, but rather fighting for, he said, fighting for them. He highlights that the president should take the people power very serious since it was demonstrated upon his return. He claims, he says that the military being on the road just demonstrated how powerful the people power movement is. He says he's breathed with a family that lost loved ones during the process, and much more that is going to issue through the statement. He just gave us a piecemeal of what he had. You are watching NBS Television, the Political Command Center. My name is Dalton Kawesa. Definitely, we shall be giving you more updates in our subsequent bulletin that is live at 1 with Kanare Mugume and live at 9 plus Masengeje at 7 o'clock. Stay here, don't go away.